Good morning, sunshine, and welcome back to another episode of Shine Buzz Daily, where it's all about creating the life that you want through intentional vibration management and actionable steps. So today we are going to talk about something that is really important to a lot of survivors, and that is setting boundaries. Setting boundaries for ourselves and how to say no when we need to without feeling like we're the worst person on the planet and without being completely uncomfortable. One quick note ahead of time, being uncomfortable is part of this whole deal, right? So part of learning how to set boundaries for people like you and me, codependent types or empaths, because sometimes we're not codependent anymore, but we're still a little sensitive as to how we make other people feel. Well, this is just it's a really important part of growing forward and learning how to sort of take our lives back and take control of what we're doing and who we are and all of that good stuff. So for those of you who are new around here, what we do is in the first 10 to 15 minutes, we'll do some content and I'll explain to you what I'm talking about today. And then I'll open up for questions at the end of the session and we'll hang around for another, 45 minutes or so, just chatting. All right. So let's get your sign buzz. All right. So I consider the art of setting boundaries to be really important for our self-confidence as well. And I guess I would ask you now, what is it that healthy, confident people have in common? Well, one thing among many is that they know how to set their boundaries and they're pretty good at doing that, setting clear boundaries. The healthier the person, the more consistent and clear the boundaries really can become. And setting boundaries, if we're being honest, is really kind of almost our responsibility, but most certainly it's a responsible way that we can really let people know what we are and are not comfortable with. So I've talked often about the deal breakers that I set in my relationships. Well, it's also a way to really be in control of not only your personal space, but your personal time and your agenda and all that other good stuff, which is, of course, a big important part of taking back your life after a toxic relationship, right? People tend to sort of focus on themselves and they tend to sort of sift everything through their personal filter. And this includes how they engage with other people, right? People want to get their needs met. And sometimes it's a functional thing. It's a healthy person looking for some help. Sometimes you've got a toxic person coming at you with a downright manipulative agenda, right? And we've all been there. We all know how that feels. But either way, we need to learn how to set boundaries, whether that person is a healthy person who needs your help and wants your help, or they're a more manipulative, toxic person. Because sometimes we can't really tell the difference. And even when we can, sometimes those people are, friends or coworkers or whatever, not always just in relationships of the intimate nature or the family nature, right? The thing is that while we have no control over the manipulative types or even the nice people, we only have control over how we respond and how we choose to engage with those people. We don't have to stay focused on what we can't control. Remember that. So we have to stay focused on what we can control, which is what? Our responses. Okay. So if someone is asking too much from you, or if they are getting too close to you or kind of intruding on your personal private space, then it's up to you to set the tone for not only what the relationship looks like, but also for how much of that person is allowed into your inner circle. And when I say inner circle, I kind of mean that bubble that we have around ourselves where only the closest people should be, right? And then there's like a second layer and so on and so forth. Like there's like your closest family members and your dearest friends, your kids maybe. And then you've got like your, some of your extended family members, maybe some of your other friends on the next circle out, and it kind of goes from there to all the way out to acquaintances. And then if you have enemies, right? So let's start. What is it that makes the ability to set boundaries? How does that affect your confidence? How does it boost your confidence? I think it starts with this. We need to remember this. If you're not really clear on how to set boundaries, or you're not really very good at setting boundaries now, you probably are struggling with feelings about yourself, with feelings about other people. You might think that if you set boundaries, that's going to make you look like a jerk. It's going to make you look inflexible or not nice or, too independent or even worse than that. A lot of us don't like to set boundaries because we were raised up to be people pleasers, or we created ourselves as people pleasers for whatever reason in our lives. I know for me, I figured out very early in my life that if I tried to do what other people wanted and succeeded, that those people would like me more. Now I don't play that game as much, but I still find myself kind of having to remind myself, hey, you're allowed to set a boundary here. It's okay. It's not hurting anyone. It's, you have to take care of yourself. And part of self-care is setting boundaries. So it could be related to your personality, your upbringing, your community, your culture, all that stuff, that we have to be accommodating to be of value. And that just isn't true. It's not. We don't always have to accommodate everyone all the time. Now, in some cases, we may choose to say yes for some other reason, or we may, but when we have our boundaries firmly established, we learn that we are allowed to have them. And not only are we allowed to have them, but we must have them, right? So it boosts confidence because there's a consistency then between your personality and your preferences and your mental health and your actions, right? So when you don't set your boundaries, when you don't allow yourself to be the boss of your own time and your own life, then of course it goes the other direction. So being able to kind of draw that line in the sand, being able to do what fits you, do what feels right to you, it's not like you're being selfish. It's not like you're being unhealthy or pushy or anything if you're setting your boundaries. That's actually the healthy way to go. You need to set those boundaries and be comfortable with that. Now, at first, it will feel uncomfortable, like I said, but we'll talk more about that. Just remember this: personal standards, and that's healthy. Having boundaries, that's healthy. Remember that your well-being, your mental health, your psychological health, all that stuff is tied to your ability to set boundaries. If you don't do it, you're going to feel worse about yourself. And when you do it, you know what you're going to do. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I totally did it. I feel so good about myself. Trust me. The first time that I finally learned how to set boundaries with some of the toxic people in my life, it blew me away, and it just really changed my life for the better. So remember that the more decisions we make that reduce conflict or slow it down or whatever in a healthy way, the more we feel sane. And sanity equals confidence, fortunately for us. So how do we set healthy boundaries? Well, first of all, you have to be honest. You have to be consistent, right? And when I say healthy, I'm saying healthy for yourself, compassionate to yourself, and also just it feels better, right? So start with checking yourself to make sure that the boundaries that you set are fair boundaries. Like if you have, a child and you tell the child they can only, stand in a 3-foot square in the house so the house stays clean, that might not be as fair, But on the same token, if that same child comes to you and says, can I have $1,000 so I can go out and blow it at the video game arcade? Are there even arcades anymore? The video game store? Then it's totally acceptable for you to say no. You know what I mean? So make sure the boundaries are fair, but also within reason. Does that make sense? So, in this way, when somebody comes to you with some kind of dysfunction, y'all know who I'm talking about, you can hold your position and feel confident about it because these boundaries are reasonable and fair. They're not outrageous, they're not silly or crazy, they're fair and reasonable. So you need to be consistent with that. And then a lot of times the boundaries become violated when we're not consistent. So when someone steps over, and this happens especially with healthy folks, they may not recognize that we have a boundary. Like, for example, maybe we want somebody to take their shoes off before they come in our house. Well, if we don't let them know that, they're totally walking in our house with shoes. You know what I mean? And it's a silly little thing, but it's real simple to create a boundary there. Like in that case, you might just stick a sign on the door, or you might just let everybody know the first time they come over, hey, you know what? We don't wear our shoes in the house. So could you leave them here on this little shelf I set up for you? You know what I mean? So being fair, firm, consistent, that sets the tone with other people, and then they respect those clear, predictable boundaries. Healthy people, anyway. And remember that when you honor your own boundaries and then you see the impact that your life gets out of it, the goodness that comes from it, your confidence is going to go through the roof, y'all. You're going to feel so much more self-assured than you probably ever have. And I think it's just incredibly important for you to remember that you have the right and the responsibility to set boundaries in order to maintain your own sanity. Now I'm going to share with you really quickly 7 different ways that you can tell somebody no without making them feel like you're being rude, without being a jerk, without any of that stuff, so that you can kind of really wrap your head around the idea that it is doable. You are allowed to say no, and sometimes you should say no, right? Okay. So number 1, sandwich it with a compliment, right? So sometimes you might say something nice, then say no, then say something nice again. And I'm going to give you an example of that. So for one example, that sounds like a really fun time, but unfortunately I'm going to need to decline because, I'm going to need to decline and then say, thank you for considering me, or thank you for, inviting me. It's really cool that you did that. Simple, right? Okay. Number 2, offer reasons, legitimate reasons or whatever. So for example, while I appreciate that you invited me, I won't be able to make it because I've got an appointment at that time, or I've got something else going at that time, or whatever, so-and-so's birthday party, whatever. Or maybe something like, oh, wow, what an amazing idea. I wish I had the budget for it. Like if somebody, hey, you want to go on a trip to Europe for me? Oh, I wish I could, but I just can't afford it right now. Be kind about it and make sure to say something that, lets them know that while you're totally into that idea, it just can't work for you for whatever reason, right? Okay, number 3, kind but brief. So in this case, maybe somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I've got this really exciting opportunity. We can go to this big lunch thing or some show or whatever. Won't cost a penny. So in this case, you can just say, you know what? I really wish I could go, but I'm so booked that day. Or, it would be super cool, or I'd really enjoy going, but I just can't make it because I have to take, Bobby to school that afternoon for some pep band thing, because I'm a band mom. That's about all I can think of. All right, number 4, say not right now instead of no, but only if that's true. Okay. So in some cases you're going to be, unable to do it for whatever reason, or you're working on another goal and this doesn't fit into your timeline or whatever. So in that case, then you'll say something like, you know what, thanks for thinking of me. I'm just so overbooked right now. I'm so overwhelmed, whatever. But listen, keep me in mind for next time. So this kind of thing might work for like if you are, I don't know, if the PTA calls you and says, hey, can you come and give a speech to the class about your job? Or, hey, can you bring in a whole bunch of cupcakes? And, oh, I really appreciate that you thought of me, and I'd really love to help, but I'm just so busy right now. But hey, please ask me next time, stuff like that. Number 5, offer an alternative. So maybe you say something like, hey, you know what? That sounds awesome, amazing, whatever. I can't make it this time, but I can hook you up with Jane because she's totally into that stuff and she would make a great partner for this project, or whatever. Or instead of that, maybe you say somebody asks you to fill in for them at work on Friday, and you say, man, I wish I could, but unfortunately I'm busy on Friday. However, if you want, I can fill in for you on Monday. So, there's an alternative. And then if they say, and then what this does is it offers them the opportunity. You can say this to them as well. Well, maybe you can ask, Bobby Sue to work for you on Friday, and then I'll work for Bobby Sue on Monday, or whatever. So it kind of gives an alternative to the original proposal or favor request, right? Number 6, be vague but effective. So in this case, you're going to essentially, hey, you know what? Thanks for asking, but it's not going to work out for me this time. Period. You don't have to always give your reason. You know what I mean? And you don't need to feel guilty for saying that. Again, I think it's about being kind when you refuse, and it's also about being firm, right? And the final one, not no, but maybe. So something like and again, I don't want you to use this if it's not really a legitimate thing, okay? Like if you really don't want to do the thing, use one of the other ones. But let's say that somebody asks you to do something. They ask you to be in a show, or they ask you to, start walking with them every Tuesday or whatever. Then you say something like, well, listen, that sounds really cool, but I'm going to have to check my schedule and get back with you, right? Or I really would love to do that, but I'm not sure that it's going to work with whatever else I've got going on. Whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? So give them just a little bit of wiggle room. Yeah. So, all right. What do you think about all of this? While you're thinking about that, let me ask you a question. What are your best tips for setting boundaries? And I'm asking you that because I think a lot of us struggle with that. And sometimes hearing from other survivors is especially helpful to, maybe there's a tip or an idea that you have that would really be useful for another person. So share that. And in the meantime, let me say this. We are about to read the cards. So it's time to read the cards. All right, get your pens, get your pencils, because it's homework. All right, so we're starting out as usual with our dialectical behavior therapy deck. And dialectical behavior skill. See, this would be in a blooper reel if I could do it. Okay, anyway, the dialectical behavior therapy skills deck. It is on Amazon. I will put a link in the description when I repost it, if I remember to. But you don't need to buy this because I will share every single card with you over the next several weeks. We are now on card number 31, and we have 52 total, and then we'll start a new deck after that. So this is an emotional regulation skill. All right, and it says, get restful sleep. Without restful sleep, it's impossible to feel healthy physically or emotionally. For the next week, eliminate activities that interfere with your sleep, like watching movies in bed. Gosh darn it, I like to watch TV in bed. Okay, we're going to do this together, y'all. Avoid caffeine and alcohol several hours before sleeping, and allow yourself to sleep 7 to 9 hours, and notice improvements in your health. So, are we going to do this together? Okay, if you're gonna do the sleep thing with me, then say yes. I'm going to sleep. Sleep. Say that in the chat for me. Yes, we're going to sleep. All right. And next up. Yes, Vicky, I agree with that one. Don't loan money to friends or family. Okay, real quick. I'm going to jump in the chat as soon as I'm finished with this card, which is going to be from the Gabrielle Bernstein Super Attractor deck. And this is our affirmation for today. Grab your pen, write it down because I don't want you to forget. It says, it's a really pretty card, and it reads, let me see if I can hold it up here if you can see it maybe. All right. It reads, when I'm patient, I let the universe do for me what I cannot do for myself. Now, again, you can always replace the word universe with the word God, whatever your faith would say. But the card says, when I'm patient, I let the universe do for me what I cannot do for myself. Pretty good, huh? All right. Yes, everybody's going to sleep. Right on. Okay. I'm going back up to the top of the chat, and we're going to do this, y'all. Hello, E-Rock. Hello, what's for tea? Stronger boundaries. I need this to do right now. Yeah, I mentioned in one of my recent videos, if you want a video on boundaries and you want to talk about boundaries, let me know. So that's why I'm here today, why I'm talking about this. All right. Hey, Jay Bats, welcome back. Paulette, welcome. Jeff Watkins, hello and welcome. Hey, Kira. Oh, she's got her coffee. Darn, I left mine over there. Well, I'll get it later. And I'll just warm it up. It's fine. Jeff says, the first boundary is like the Skull Island gate, which keeps the inner King Kong in to check when he's angry. That sounds legit. I wish that I knew more about that movie, but I can imagine. And I think that's fair, because the fact is it's really difficult for us when we've gone through these toxic relationships to just suddenly learn how to set boundaries. And a lot of us were raised in homes where we weren't allowed to have our own boundaries. And so it feels really hard sometimes, All right. Okay. Yes. Now, this is a really great point that was for teammates. She says, also teaching others on how they should treat us. That is what setting a boundary is all about, is about showing them. And, you teach people how to treat you by the way that you react and respond to the way they treat you in general. Unfortunately, there's no how to treat Angie class or how to treat what's for tea class. You know what I mean? We have to teach each individual person who we are and what we will and won't accept. So that's the thing. Let's see here. Oh, okay. The Narcissist Skull Island gate is paper mache. That seems right to me. E-Rock says, they claim their space but don't take up space. Versus that is such a huge pet peeve of mine, and I've noticed it with a narcissist starting with my parents. So they claim their space, but don't take up that space. That's interesting. It's this taking up of space that does not belong to them. It belongs to everyone. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And they do, I found in my toxic relationships that they took up a lot of space in my life. And and sometimes it wasn't even actually, it was just their big negative energy. Like they would walk into the room and the room would suddenly get heavier. But a lot of time, like with my ex, I needed to spend so much time paying attention to him, and that was exhausting for me. And I couldn't focus on anything for myself, and it was really bad, especially because I had a baby at the time. Oh, hey, Nargis. Welcome back, my friend. Just on a short break right now. Okay. Jeff says, a boundary is a filter, pause, hesitation, or qualm to the ID's desires. It's a resistance to impulse. A boundary is a resistance to an empty want. Cool. Yeah, totally. Hey, Jillian, welcome back, and thank you for representing the mod squad. PGTT says, boundaries are for ourselves, not the other person. Ding, ding. Absolutely 100%. Boundaries are really a huge part of self-care, right? Okay. All right. E-Rock says, the pause between the stimuli and the response, even if it's somebody that's taken up common space, and I want to race past them to show them. He says, I've noticed that I just stop and take a much needed breath. At least I've been able to do that a couple of times recently. Yeah, that's actually a really great point. See, and that's, sometimes you do need to just go, okay, now I'm ready to set the boundary, And so sometimes that's why the number 7 would work, where you can say, you know what, I'm not sure yet. I need to think about it. I need to check my schedule, whatever it is. When you're saying no, because it gives you a little bit of space from that person where you can think about it without being on the spot. Because I know that was a hard thing. I think I mentioned to you guys in my story when I talked about what happened with my mother and the CPS thing, when she called CPS on me, that there was that she called that a couple weeks earlier and demanded to know the answer right now about taking my kid to California, and I couldn't check my schedule because I was in the middle of something. And like minutes later, I called her back and said, listen, that's not going to work for me. But she wouldn't allow me to check my schedule before I gave her an answer. That's a typical narcissist thing. And in hindsight, I realized that I would have had to tell her, or I should have said to her, I cannot check my schedule right now. I cannot give you an answer. I have to go put my kids on the bus. I'll talk to you later. But I didn't know how to set the boundary at that time. You understand what I mean? She was being so direct and screaming into the phone. I need to know right now, that I felt overwhelmed and shocked by this. Do you understand what I mean? Okay. All right, let's see here. J-Bet says, geez, I never had boundaries until this year of my life. That is huge. And it feels good when you finally learn how to set them, right? But that's, again, it's because you probably were brought up in a place where you were not taught to set boundaries, or even, like in my case, not allowed to set your own boundaries, right? Your boundaries were predetermined by someone else, and very often they didn't fit with your own self. Do you know what I mean? They didn't work for you personally. They were too lax or too strict or whatever. Morning Nubia, welcome back, says, yes, boundaries. Alrighty. I'm with you. Let's see here. Jeff says, a boundary is a lifesaver to the inner moth when a flame is lit. Indeed. Indeed. Jillian says, boundaries are important because they awake with us. They are awake with us, checking in with ourselves. They provide an assurance that we are meeting our own needs. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. Let's see here. They provide an, did I miss? Oh, wait. They provide an assurance of me. Okay. Oh, because they are away with us, checking. Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. I had a moment, but I got what you're saying. Jeff says, oh yes, a boundary is stopping self or yourself from being a yes man or woman. And that's a legitimate point. How often have we said yes when we didn't want to? I have often said yes. I even struggled when I first started my coaching business to get clients off the phone within a reasonable amount of time. I had, not everyone, because a lot of people that I speak to are very, careful about time and respectful of time. But I went through this thing where I had a few clients who would take advantage of my time, and they would, instead of they'd paid for a 1 hour session, they would take a 3 hour session. And then my whole day was shot because I would have 2 of those in one day or whatever. And so I got a little help by explaining to my current long-term assistant / office manager has helped me to put the boundary in place by saying, just so you know, overages, they cost more because time is, you can't get your time back. You know what I mean? So that was really helpful for me because it's hard for me to want to cut someone off when they're having any trouble with a crisis or whatever. Anyway, UNA says, I was always taught that I had to be totally open with no boundaries. Exactly. Or it's assumed that I'm hiding something, therefore didn't love them. Boundaries are hard for me. That is exactly what I'm talking about. That is exactly, yeah, I was taught the same thing. I was taught that I was not allowed to have my own boundaries. And I think a lot of us can recognize that if we grew up with toxic people. Let's see here. J Bats says, to E-Rock, mind-blowing for me to figure it out finally. Yeah. Jeff says, a boundary is a nonconformity from agreeable social behavior. That is true. It's true. But you know what? We spent way too many years being too agreeable. Would you not agree with that? I mean, I think a lot of us can relate to the idea that, being so agreeable, maybe people liked us more because of it, but do we really want people who only like us because we let them walk all over us? I don't think that we do. Right? Right. But you're so right that it really is a thing. And that's part of the reason I do what I do, because society sometimes tells us, we should be meek and we should just accept whatever, but that doesn't work in real life. E-Rock says, but here we go again. I had no boundaries growing up. I was not getting permission to have any, including not having a lock on my door. My journal was read. It's just wild to note how far this stuff goes back. See, and I think there's a reason that we are all sitting here today together, because the fact of the matter is that a lot of us had that similar experience where I remember my mother would come into my room. Here's an example of a boundary violation. My grandfather and my grandmother stayed at our house one time for about, a week. And during that time, apparently one of the pills that my grandfather's heart pills had been loose in the house. Like he lost it or something. My mother found it, didn't know what it was, assumed it was a drug. It was, but it was not my drug. And she literally came into my bedroom and destroyed everything off the shelves, everything out of the drawers, while I watched in horror. The whole room was turned upside down. And then I had no idea why. She was screaming and acting crazy. I had no idea why. And at the end of it, she showed me this pill and she said, "Are you taking drugs?" And I'm like, "No, I wasn't." And then she ended up later finding out that it was his pill. And instead of just connecting the idea that maybe it belonged to the elderly, or not elderly, but elderly-ish couple that had been staying in her house for a week, she assumed her then teenage daughter must be taking the pills. And it was a huge violation of boundaries, and that was not the only time it happened. Yeah. Anyway, J-Bat says it sure does, and if we are not bad, we create them, and we are not bad if we create them boundaries and learn to say no. Right. Yeah, E-Rock, UNA says, same, I couldn't even close doors. Yeah. Jillian says, do not despair. There was a time when I did not even know what a boundary was, let alone what they should be for me. Yeah, and Jillian has done so much work on herself and also for our community. She has been featured in 2 of my books with her story and some really great advice. And she has done just a tremendous amount. So she is definitely a good source of advice on this one. A good person to inspire all of us in so many ways. J-Bat says, my privacy was also invaded. Yeah, you see, this is the thing. We are taught by people who don't treat us like real people. Because if they treated us like real people rather than extensions of ourselves, we would never have fallen into this trap on so many levels. I mean, I know it sounds weird to say they don't treat us like real people, but that's how I really felt. I literally felt that I wasn't a real person growing up. And it took me a long time to get over that feeling of almost imposter syndrome, because I was led to believe that everything I had to say, think, feel, or wanted to do was always just dumb or wrong or insignificant or, childish, even even when I was an adult. So, and I can guarantee you that if I were ever to hear again exactly what certain people in my life think of me, they would be similar thoughts. And that's why I don't deal with those people anymore. Let's see here. E-Rock says, I am important. My feelings are important. My space is important. These are things that I'm realizing, and I let people erode my boundaries on a regular basis my whole life until now. I did too, until I was 35. And even then, like I said, I still have struggled in certain ways with certain boundaries, right? Because I feel a certain, like when I was talking about the people who would keep me on the phone too long, I felt those people because they had been in similar situations to me. And so I didn't want to, I felt that they were different than other people and they deserved a little, you know what I mean? So like, even when those people seem like, and even like I said, even when they're nice people and they're good people and they don't mean to do anything wrong, you still have to set your boundaries with those people. You understand? Let's see here. J Bats loves that. Hey Lori, welcome back. Terry says, hey Angie, I listen to your videos at work with earbuds, so I'm not always able to comment, but I do listen every day. Great video. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you so much. E-Rock says to see how common this stuff is between us. Yeah, it's pretty shocking when you realize not only did we all probably have similar childhood experiences on different levels of it, but that we ended up with, some of us ended up with romantic partners who sort of mirrored that experience or expanded on that experience on some level, because like in some ways my ex appeared to be the opposite of my mother, but in fact it turned out that he was just a more covert form of that. You know what I mean? So yes. Nicole Angelina says, African Americans were never allowed to have boundaries. As a whole, can you imagine the mental illness running around in this community? I will tell you, Nicole, I have very many friends and I live in that community, or at least one of my places is over in that community. And I don't want to comment on that, but I will tell you that I have been blessed to have friends who are more aware than what you're describing. And that's all I'm going to say, because I certainly don't want to, you already know. But I hear you and I feel you. And I have seen some of it, but like I said, the people that are closest to me, I have seen most of those people be more aware and less likely to not see that stuff. You know what I mean? But I know what you mean too. And I've heard some of this from them as well. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Take Control Beauty says, hi Angie, it's Barbara. Hey Barbara. She says, I have a question. Is narcissistic personality disorder an inherited gene, or does it happen because you were raised around a parent who had it? Can you stop the process in your kids? Good question. I have made videos on this. If you type in Angie Atkinson, nurture or nature, you'll see it there. But what it comes down to is that it's both. There's evidence that the brain has a thinner part of the brain that controls empathy is thinner in people who are diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. But you also see people who are raised by a narcissist who become like the narcissist. And what I've seen is that pretty much when you're raised in a toxic household, you're going to be either narcissist or codependent. And it just depends on how you manifest the damage, right? So the two children can come out of the same house and one of them can be a toxic one of the narcissistic nature, and the other one can be a codependent who's just trying to make everybody happy. And that's exactly what came out of my household. And I can tell you probably 1,000 other people who came out of a different thing. Yeah. E-Rock says to Nicole, yeah, I totally get it. I'm not African American, but I'm Jewish and a direct descendant of Holocaust survivors. Hello. Yeah, I got some of that in me too. In this way, I can totally identify with that feeling. Okay, I can identify with that on some level too, but unfortunately, I was not given the gift of being raised in that community. I was raised around a different community. So, yeah, but I get that on some level too. But I think that, well, I'm not going to comment on that. E-Rock says, I sometimes wonder why the degree of transgenerational trauma, if my parents and how they treated us were any indication. Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what, Iraq. Here's the thing that I believe to be true, and what I've seen in my own family as well as families of people who I have worked with, and that is that this is a thing that happens in generations. Because what happens is you've got, let's say grandma and grandpa, they were a little toxic, they messed up your mom's head or your dad's head, and then your mom or dad is a little messed up and they think they're going to do better for you, but in fact they just pull a different kind of damage, or maybe they do damage you a little less. But the thing is, what I hope is, like, my larger mission in life is to, you guys know my primary mission is to help you. My secondary mission is to help you help other people. So, and I hope that you start with the people that you directly affect in your life, whether those people are related to you or not. If you think about it, if each one of us breaks the cycle for someone else, whether it's our child, our spouse, our friend, helps someone else break the cycle so that when they go on and go forward, they don't pass on this crap to somebody else, we have done our job. And I hope that, I hope I'm breaking the cycle for my own children. I think I'm breaking the cycle for my own children. And I hope that you can do the same thing for someone in your life. And if we can do that, that's how we stop it. Imagine if, like, I have something like 121,000 subscribers on just this channel. We're not talking about email lists and Facebook groups and all the other stuff. And I have podcasts all over the place that also have subscribers. My point is, if just 121,000 of us just were to go out and change one other person's life so that they don't carry on the toxic legacy, we can change the world, y'all. We really can. So just think about that. Imagine the impact. That's what I'm hoping that we'll do. Okay, sorry about that. Got distracted. Oh, I wanted to answer another question. The person who asked me, oh, here it is, right here. Hold on. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my spot if I scroll up too far. Barbara, who asked about, could you stop the process in your kids? And I think that you can up to a point, but you must start early. And if you don't start early, then maybe you still have a shot. But it comes down to teaching your child empathy and making sure that they know, and you can do it real small. When we're talking about little kids, as soon as they can start to talk, if they're watching something on TV or whatever, and somebody gets hurt on TV, Blue's Clues or whatever, I don't know. When my kids are tweens and teens, and a tween, a teen, and a 20-something now. So Blue's Clues was a thing back then. But whatever happens, when you're watching a show with them, or when you're reading them a story, or when you see something happen in real life, point out to that kid, hey, what do you think that person felt about that? Or how do you think that person, do you think that person got hurt? And how do you think they felt? What could you do to make that person feel better? Age appropriate stuff. You know what I mean? Starting with as soon as they can talk and notice things happening to other people. That's when you start doing that. And then, of course, you show them empathy yourself, and you if you're their parent, you teach them unconditional love. You show them that you love them unconditionally, because this is, I believe, one of the biggest slaps in the face of being the child of a toxic family, is that you never get unconditional love anytime in your life. And everybody should have that from their parents, but we don't. And so I think a lot of us kind of walk through life feeling like we're not worth anything because our own parents couldn't give us unconditional love. You know what I mean? So I feel like if we can change one person's life, one, in any way, shape, or form that would help them to not be toxic to the next person, whether it's our child or somebody, else in the world, that won't then turn around and treat someone else horribly. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. Okay. Barbara, I do have a video on that as well. And I can't remember the title, but if you just type in my name and help the children or help children or something like that, you'll find it, hopefully. YouTube's been weird lately. Quick question for you guys. Has anyone been unsubscribed from my channel without your permission or anything like that? There's been some weird stuff going on lately, so I was just checking. All right, let's see here. Nubia says, my boundaries were formed as I went through toxic relationships. Don't hit me and don't call me out of my name. Yeah. Okay. Yes. That don't hit me is one of my boundaries as well. And don't emotionally or physically abuse me is another one. And of course, don't cheat on me. Those are my three. Oh, and my children. Don't mess with them. Because yeah, nobody wants to mess with my children. Vicky says, hello. Sorry, I'm late. Hello, Vicky. Welcome back. E-Rock says, Angie, it feels selfish. I feel like a bad person sometimes, or have all this guilt for simply saying no to something, not for people or not for people or for not people pleasing. I was thinking about doing a video about guilt. If you guys want that, tell me, and I'm sorry for this word, but I don't want to forget when I see it in chat later. Type the word guilt into chat right now if you want me to make the next video on how to deal with guilt as we go through recovery and evolution beyond recovery, because I think a lot of us can relate to that, especially having been people pleasers, and it's a process, but I will be happy to give you some tips and ideas on it, and then we can discuss it during our next stream. All right, let me know your thoughts on that. But I do relate to you so deeply, and for me it has been, and I'll just give you a quick tip: remind yourself when you feel guilty, stop and ask yourself, do I really need to feel guilty here? Is, telling that person, no, I won't give you $1 bazillion, is that something that I should, you know what I mean? Like, be reasonable with yourself. And if that doesn't work, E-Rock, I want you to think about someone you really care about. Like, I don't know, imagine your puppy was a person or whatever, somebody that you love unconditionally. Think about if that person came to you, your brother, your sister, your best friend, whatever, came to you and said, hey, E-Rock, this person asked me for this favor or whatever, and I don't know what to do, and I don't want to do that thing. What would you say to that person? And it sounds so silly, but it really makes a huge difference in the way that we perceive ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves. That was a huge turning point for me when I figured out, well, what if my daughter or my son were going through exactly what I'm going through? How would I help them? Boy, it woke me up like crazy. You don't even know. Try it. Okay. All right. Okay. Hello, Kayla. Welcome back. And Nicole Angelina says, still to this day, African Americans can't even say no to police searching their person, house, or property. No, you know what? You're right. That is an unfortunate fact. She said this has caused such learned helplessness, which makes them lash out. And I will say this, you're right. And I saw it in the community often. I see it often. And for people who, there is such a thing as white privilege. I'm not trying to talk about that here, but there is, and it's disgusting what you see. It is. Even though I'm half Jewish, you can't tell. And so I haven't experienced it in that same way, but I have seen it with my friends right next to me being treated that way. In this, we're together somewhere, we're being followed, but I go to that same place by myself. Nobody follows me. It's ridiculous. You're right. That is a very valid point, Nicole. And I wish I could speak on it a little more, but I think that you speaking on it is powerful. And I think that's something that you might want to consider doing a little more loudly if you can, because our society needs to wake up and stop treating people like they're less than. I mean, I'm going to tell you something. My primary home is in a really nice neighborhood, really nice, where the majority of residents are well-to-do African-American people. They all have educations, they have nice cars, nice jobs, nice kids. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and still people are treated like that. And there's no stereotypes at all. You know what I'm saying? Stereotypes are ridiculous, and it really peeves me off that people are treated that way. Because we're all people. I look at it, okay, I'm just going to go on I look at it like this. Human. We're human. Nobody can be better than anybody else. We can have children together. We can, create life together. We can share blood and organs. How are we different? I mean, it's just an external thing. Okay, I'm stopping. I don't want to get into all this right now. But I hear you and I feel you. Jeff says, as an empath caregiver type, a boundary is here is where I let go and say I can't help you to avoid drowning with worthless people who don't help themselves. Yes, and it's difficult, but right. I think I told you guys a couple days ago about one of my clients who has been scammed by somebody who claimed to be her friend and has lost thousands of dollars to this person. And it's because she cared so deeply about the person and because she struggled to see the truth because this person was using religion on her and God told me this and God told me that, whatever. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It really upsets me to see people being taken advantage of by people who are clearly manipulating them, and especially vulnerable people who would give you the shirt off their back if they'd had to. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just really peeves me off. Okay. All right. Jeff says, I already said that one. Okay. Thank you. E-Rock says, I know this isn't true. Yep. I cognitively know where it comes from. It's just so deeply embedded that I annoy myself with my own guilt or things that other people don't feel guilty about. That is a really powerful statement, and I think I can completely identify with it. And that's exactly what I was kind of talking about when I was talking about the people that kept me on the phone too long. Like, I know logically that this is not acceptable. I know logically this is taking time from my family and all my other stuff I have to do, my other clients, y'all, whatever. And yet, just like E-Rock, it was so deeply embedded in me that even though I had literally already done the healing, I was fine, I had moved on, I was setting boundaries in other ways, this person, these people, they would affect me because I was connecting with them on a deeper level and feeling them, feeling their pain and feeling responsible for it. And it took me some time to get used to being able to connect with them and still be, hold empathy in my heart for them and talk to them on a true level, but also to be able to say, it's time for me to go, So I did learn a 5-minute warning was helpful. All right. Let's see here. Yes, Nicole, boundaries are so important. UNA says, I say I have other plans and then I thank them. She said, I thought I was fibbing, but really I realized I wasn't because I did have other plans. My plans were not going. Yes, girl. Yes. You don't have to justify yourself. This is something that I think a lot of us can. In fact, one of you guys told me, and I want to say it was Belle, one of you guys told me, what was it? Jade. And it was like, we don't have to justify, and I can't remember what A is now, account for? I can't remember. Or defend or make excuses or something like that ourselves. And that's important to remember, especially for us survivors, because we have been through enough already, and we have been taught that we don't deserve or don't have the right to have boundaries, and so on and so forth. All right. Cher slays. What a cool name. Cher says, what if they are quick to rudely say you don't have to give an explanation once you said no? Then say, okay, cool, thanks, bye. And it feels uncomfortable to us when when somebody says that, because what they're doing when they act like that is they're giving us evidence of a narcissistic injury. They have become injured by our no, if they're a toxic person like that. Now, if they say, if they're, I would just say whatever I have to say in one sentence, if possible, right? So, I'd love to do that, but unfortunately I can't make it because whatever, and then that's it. If they want to interrupt you and be rude about it, well, it's ironic in a way that they would be asking you for a favor and then be so horribly rude to you afterward or during the ask. I hope that's a little bit helpful, Cher. I would be prepared with a standard line if I were you, or a couple of standard lines that are just pretty much solid no's. Or if that makes you uncomfortable, do the let me check my schedule thing. Well, I'm not really sure if I can do that right now, but I'll check my schedule and get back to you. Definitely get back to them, but maybe in a text or an email, so you don't have to talk to them face to face and say no at first until you get a little better at setting boundaries in person. Let me know your thoughts on that. Oh, okay, Nancy. Nancy had to go. Love back to you, honey. In case she watches this back. E-Rock says, when setting boundaries with a narcissist, I did it after the fact of having no boundary. When setting boundaries with a narcissist, I did it after the fact, after having no boundaries. You know what happens after that, right? Yup. E-Rock goes on to say, and Nicole Angelina adds, they probably lashed out at you, which I would agree with that. E-Rock says it could even be that they just see you living a life that has nothing to do with them, and the rage comes. Yep. He says, I was completely knocked upside the head with it. I have flashbacks all the time. Yeah, I lashed out. Yeah, he says, lashed out is an understatement, but they showed who they were. It was crazy to see how much she relished in seeing me down and out after a long period of idealization, and I'm grossed out by it now. How can I not be grossed out by it anymore? I guess I have to live my life, fill my life with other things. I think that's the key. E-Rock, that's powerful stuff. And Nicole Angelina is right. And I think, you just stated that. Definitely, when you have previously not set boundaries with a person, and this is kind of true whether they're a narcissist or not, their initial reaction is going to be like, what? And then if they are a decent person, then they'll, you know what, I understand, that makes sense, whatever. And with a decent person, you can even say, look, I have not been very good at setting boundaries, but I'm really working on myself and I'm trying to do that now. So please understand where I'm coming from. Don't bother to say that to a narcissist, because with a narcissist, it's going to be exactly what E-Rock said, no matter what. If you previously have allowed them to walk all over you and now you're like, no more, a lot of times they'll drop you like a hot rock. And thank goodness for that, in a way, even though it doesn't feel like that in the moment. But that is one way to get a narcissist to discard you if you want them to, is just get real strong with your boundaries, Jillian said, and something is really important to pay attention to. Oh yeah, okay. She said, it's really important to pay attention to your gut feeling. If I feel uneasy inside, my default is to automatically delay. This is good, until I figure out why I feel uneasy. I want to just point that out. Jillian is right here, because look, your gut feeling is your intuition. And we have been taught not to listen, to push it down and not deal with it. And what she is saying is something we all need to do. And that is to stop and listen to it. Our gut feeling tells us something. Maybe if it, like she said, it feels uneasy. You might feel just a little bit uncomfortable. You might feel something's kind of off. You don't know what it is. That's when you delay. And you do the thing I said, you know what, I need to check my schedule, or I'm not sure yet, but I'll get back to you and let you know, whatever it is. Come up with a standard line that you can use, because when we are on the spot in the moment, a lot of us are like, we don't even know how to say it out loud. So that is very powerful, Jillian. Thank you so much for bringing that tip up. I love that. Hello, Alma Jane. Welcome. Vicky Horcher says, don't loan money to friends or family. If you want to help and gift it, then do it, but never loan it. It's the number one boundary for me. And that is also a boundary for me. If I can't afford to give it away, I don't do it. And I have helped many friends and family members, but only when I was in a position to do so comfortably without hurting my family, financially. And I've done it a lot, and I'll do it again, I'm sure. But just like Vicky says, only do it if you can afford to give the money away. Otherwise, it does create tension among friends and family if there's somebody borrows $1,000 or $100 or $5, and then you need the money back and they can't pay you back, and you're hurting because that's a very, 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 very good point. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, Alma Jane says, I need some help. Well, tell me what you need, honey. I'm right here. Let's see here. Hello, Blue Ridge Boomer. What a cool name. It's funny. I had a discussion with my son about that whole boomer thing. and because he joked with me and said okay, boomer, and I was like, I'm not a boomer, I'm a Gen Xer. My mother's a boomer, barely. He's like, it doesn't matter, everybody's calling your people, your generation boomers. I was so irritated. All right, anyway, where was I? Okay, I see it did the thing. It does it at least once a session, I think. Okay, where it scrolls down and I lose all my. Oh no, Christina Thompson gave me a super chat and I didn't see her comment. It was retracted. Christina, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that till right now. But thank you for the super chat. I sincerely appreciate that, and I'm so sorry that I missed your question. Okay, here we go. So, boop, 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 boop. Share, Vicky. Here we go. Lashed out at you, Jillian. Okay, I found it. All right. Blue Ridge Boomer, hello to my three loves. Jedi Frogmaster in the house. I'm doing this for you. This is the signal I've seen next to your name sometimes. Nicole says you're in the right place. Right on, girl. Jillian says, chances are if I'm feeling uneasy, I already said that one. Oh no. Chances are if I'm feeling uneasy, it's because the other person has prevailed upon me in the past, and it turned out to be something other than what they said. She said in one case it was the narcissist at a former job. That is important. Yes. Lori says, love how faithful you are. Right on, girl. Right on. Jedi Frogmaster says the order of the Jedi is in session. That's awesome. What's for tea? Okay, the sleep thing. Yes. All right, we're doing that. Hello, Jedi Frogmaster. E-Rock says to Vicky, that's a great boundary. It's a healthy boundary. Yes. He says, I was given money by my parents at a stage in my adult life when I really needed help. They infiltrated my life. They jumped at the opportunity to do so. The same thing happened to me. No joke. When I left my ex-husband, I could not afford it. Daycare was more than my house payment at the time. And I couldn't do it. I needed help. And so in return, my parents paid for it. I couldn't get any help through the state. My ex wasn't helping. And so my parents, they paid half of it for a period of time. And they had so many restrictions and things I was required to do in order for them to help pay that half of that daycare. And they certainly jumped at the opportunity to do so because it didn't hurt them, but it also gave them this control over me. And I really didn't have a lot of choices because I desperately needed the daycare so I could make the money to feed the child and all the things. And so, yes, they did. They had me, I had to sign a contract. I would go to church. I would do this. I would do that, all these things. And it was rough. And that sounds silly to say it out loud. I know it sounds like nothing, but there was more to it than that. It was very controlling, this contract. Yeah. But, like Richard Grannon says, I had to take the chocolate in that situation because I needed the help desperately. And I did what I had to do to get through it. So, Flower Child, hello and welcome. Cool name. When I'm patient, I let the universe, do for me what I cannot do for myself. Yeah, that's a good one, right? Let's see. Chilling with Brian, hello and welcome. Nicole Angelina says to Alma Jane, you are in the right place. Jillian says, yes, I'm going to sleep. Okay, we're sleeping. We're all sleeping this week. E-Rock says, so if I've ever been in a place where I'm able to help someone, I would just rather give it as a gift or just get them what they need and not have any discussion of payback. Same, yes. And I'll do that. If it's somebody who I worry they might waste the money or not spend the money, then I'll either, if it's a bill they need me to pay, I'll just pay the bill directly, or I'll buy them groceries instead of giving them food money, you know what I mean? But most people that I would help, I would just give the money directly to, and if I can afford to do that. Lori says, I sleep like a baby. Good for you. I love that. Grace says, hey Grace, how are you? Welcome back, my friend. Hello, Sandra, welcome. Beth says, sleep more. My butt's trying to get out of bed. Okay, I feel you. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Now, Dana Morningstar tells me that she sleeps when she's stressed. I go the other way. I'll stay up for days, not really days, I lie, but I'll sleep 3 hours a night or 2 hours a night. I've even done that recently and I wasn't even stressed. I was just really into this one TV show. But then I said to myself, Albert Einstein only slept 3 hours a night. I'll be fine. I'm not so fine, but it's cool. I'm good. I slept more hours last night. But it is healthy. And she said, Beth says, I'm having horrible PTSD nightmares lately that make 12 hours not enough. Oh my goodness. But I pledge to get up and on with my day, even if it's hard. Yes, today was a win. Good for you. It is important to still get up and go, because otherwise you're going to throw your schedule completely off. And may I suggest, Beth, that you try a bedtime routine to maybe alleviate some of the nightmares. So you take up to an hour to just make sure that you're kind of winding down and relaxing before you go to bed. Make sure your bedroom feels serene, even if it's tiny. Just make sure it's tidy. Make sure you're not having to climb over stuff to get to your bed, and keep it kind of as peaceful. You make it your little retreat in your place. You know what I mean? Make the bed look pretty. Make the bed when you wake up in the morning, even if it just, you pull the covers up and throw a couple pillows on. Oh my gosh, the huge difference it makes. I started doing that, I don't know, a while back now. And every day, as soon as I get up, before I even go to the bathroom, I quickly make my bed. And it feels so great walking in my room every time and seeing my fuzzy pink, blanket all pulled up with all the pretty pillows. It's really cool. And it helps me. But anyway, you're doing the right thing by making sure you get up anyway, but you can do a meditation before you go to sleep. You can read, whatever you do, focus on something positive, not something negative. I suggest doing the 10 gratitudes and 3 things you love about yourself to yourself as you're going to bed. I also suggest that if you do choose to have any sound on in the background, that it's soothing sounds and not crazy loud sounds. So maybe you, I know this is silly, but I watch sitcoms at night when I sleep. And I keep it just low enough that I have to lay really, really still to hear it, and then I pass out right away. Also, sometimes Alexa shares, we'll share the, what's it called? Meditations and things. YouTube has a ton of really good sleep meditations. Some of that stuff might help you to kind of clear up your sleep time a little bit so that you're not reliving your trauma over and over again. But sometimes when we are reliving our trauma in our dreams, or we're having PTSD type issues with our dreams, it's because we haven't fully worked through something yet. So if you can tie the dream to anything in real life, any issue specifically in real life, that maybe you need to look at that issue again and see if it's something that your brain is trying to subconsciously work through while you sleep, because maybe your conscious self has shoved it away and can't deal with it right now. Maybe you need to pull it out and try to deal with it now. Maybe that's your intuition or your brain telling you, or whatever, that you're ready to deal with it. Okay, where was I? Let's see here. E-Rock says, I'm all set, thanks. Yeah, that can be a good one. Yeah. And like if they offer you, I don't know about you guys, but certain narcissists in my life have been offended when I didn't want to eat whatever food it was they were offering me, or, take whatever junk they wanted me to take out of their house and back to my house. And that's a really good one for that. You know what? I'm all set, thanks. Yeah, that's a good one. Flabby, I'm just going to call you Abby. Abby says, I needed this today, and my ex is trying to wheedle back in after I broke up with him earlier this week. He threatened to beat up my father. Oh my gosh. Definitely time to be single for a while. Hope everyone is having a positive day. Hey, I agree with you on the single thing. And if you were really concerned about him going after your father, I suggest a restraining order, because having this on file will help you in the future. Some states call it an order of protection. I don't know for sure where you're from, but I would suggest that you consider legal action if you're very concerned about the way that he's going to come after you. I also suggest that you block him on every possible platform, unless you have a child together, in which case I would consider getting one of those court-approved apps that allows you to communicate only about the child, and then there's a record of it for the court for when that comes around. Otherwise, I would definitely cut him off at the knees, be done with it. That person, somebody who threatens to beat up your father or anyone else, not worth your time, in my opinion. I mean, okay, let me roll back here. So let's say if your father had beaten you up or done some horrible thing to you, and the person who you loved, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, was feeling upset about that, and I wish I could beat your father up, but I wouldn't, obviously they wouldn't do it, but they feel really angry, they want to hurt the person because the person hurt you. That's different. But I'm talking about a literal threat to beat up a man probably older than himself. I just think that's very, very, you already know that's why you left him. Very, very toxic. Yes. Okay. Vicky says, yeah, exactly. Pay it forward when you can. And that, Vicky, is a huge thing. I'm a huge proponent of that. And that's part of the reason I help people today, is because there was a time, for example, my ex-mother-in-law of all people, she was amazing. She's passed away now, but even after I left my ex-husband, we stayed very close. And she did help me. In fact, she helped me after I left my ex-husband, because he turned around and ran up all the bills in my name. Like, if I put all the bills back over in his name, and he ran them up and let them be turned off. And then he put them in my name and lied to them and said, I came back, put them back in my name, and then ran them up and got them turned off. And so then, what do you think I had to do? I had to pay all those bills when I moved into my new place, because I was in an interim situation where I was staying at somebody else's house for about 5 months. It was somebody's grandmother went into a nursing home, and they didn't want to leave the house standing by itself, and they couldn't sell it because of Medicaid or something. So I got a good deal and stayed there for almost nothing for 5 months. And then I was able to save up money so I could buy my next place. And and so as I'm trying to move into that place and have enough money to get by and everything, and I was saving and everything, but it turned out that I had thousands of dollars in back, water bills and gas bills and trash bills and electric bill, because my ex-husband had blown them all up. And so my ex-mother-in-law, who was not even his mother, she was his stepmother, was kind enough to help me out with that. And she didn't ask me to pay her back, but little things like, that was a big thing, things like that, I certainly have paid forward and continue to pay forward any help that people give me, because I think it's important. And I'm not always able to pay. Wow, that was a loud sound. The mailman just threw a box on my porch and shook the whole house. Or the UPS guy, I can't tell which right now. Crazy. Anyway, so yeah. Totally distracted there. Okay, so let's see. Sandra says, I've noticed a coworker that's a narcissist will physically bump me. Oh, see, that is that's an over, what's the word I'm looking for? That's a boundary issue, but it was the mailman. I'm going to complain about that. All right. That was a boundary issue. When somebody runs into you like that, that's like, it's almost like they're bullying you, right? But it's a step toward really overcoming really stepping on your boundaries. And a physical, it would be different if it happened accidentally or, but I've seen people do it too. Like they would become upset with someone or even myself, and, they would shoulder bump you when they walk by. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Sandra, I would, if I were you, I'd start making a circle around that person when you walk past them. Instead of continuing to walk forward, I would walk a circle around them. And if they ask why, tell them, I'm sure there's more to that story that I don't know. So hello, Angela Falsetta, number 1. How are you? It's good to see you. She says, love to me and all of you. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. I'm always happy to see you. Rihanna says, hi, it was interesting. I broke up with my narcissistic boyfriend on February 19th. And exactly 5 years ago, my divorce with my ex-husband was on the same day 5 years ago. Wow. This is interesting. I mean, I know that obviously wasn't planned or anything, but this is interesting. This is a little bit off topic, but Facebook has done this thing to me where they do the memories thing. And what I've noticed is that there are certain patterns that repeat throughout the year. Like if I'm real cranky on a certain day, I'll see that same day I'm cranky this year. Or if I'm having a really great day one day, I'm feeling really great this year. And that's really interesting. Yeah, because I've been on Facebook like 10 years now. And so like, there's definitely some patterns we're studying there. I should probably do that and make a video about it. Anyway, let's see here. Beth says, everyone is a reverend this morning. I hear microphones dropping like flies. I don't understand what that means. I'm so sorry. Is it my microphone? Is it mine? Okay. I think I'm missing something here. All right. Rihanna says, I'm nervous that my ex-boyfriend won't leave me alone. He keeps texting, I'm sorry. Oh, I suggest blocking him. If you don't have children with him, block him. I know it's hard to do it. I know it's painful to do it, but it will just take the sting out of constantly seeing his name pop up on your stuff. You know what I mean? You can block him from your phone. You can, if you have, I don't know all the carriers, but I have Verizon, and I know that there are a couple different ways you can do it. But one thing you can do is go in and block them completely to where they don't ring through, aren't able to text you, and they get a message saying this person is not accepting calls. That only lasts for 90 days. And then there's just recently a new thing you can do, and I can't tell you about it, but whoever your carrier is, there are different ways that you can block them at the carrier level and then on your phone level. So if you're not ready to do the carrier level yet, just block them on your phone or set up their number to read DNA, do not answer or something like that. And I know there are some ways that you can send your text messages and emails and stuff automatically to trash. I don't know all the details, but I'm saying do something to block them from being able to reach you. Of course, Christina, I'm so sorry that I didn't get your question. E-Rock says yes to Vicky in the same vein, like holding the door for someone because you want to. Their thank you is nice, but their lack thereof is not a reason to react in any kind of way. That's a very valid point. Yeah, it's not our responsibility to teach everyone in the world some manners, right? E-Rock says these are the little things on a daily basis that we can use to practice for the bigger things, perhaps. That's a great idea. Yeah, great idea. Sandra says a great boundary is not even letting them in your life at all. Now that we know. Yeah, of course. And that's part of why I do what I do, to educate people on, okay, now that we figured out these people are here, here's how we avoid that. And I really believe the biggest part of avoiding it is about simply just saying, listen, I cannot allow myself to, just setting those boundaries and not allowing yourself to accept less than you deserve. And if you see red flags in a person, that you keep them at a distance until you figure out for sure if they're toxic or not. And of course, if they are, then, out of your life. I really think the biggest thing, though, is getting your self-esteem together, learning to set the boundaries, learning to love yourself or like yourself enough that you're valuable and worth something, and that you will be indignant if somebody tries to treat you like crap, right? And I'm not saying I want you to act like, oh, what? But I want you to feel that a little bit so that you know that this is not something you should take. The first time that I ever got to feel indignant about somebody being rude or disrespectful to me, it took me a long time. I was 35 years old. And I really thought, what is wrong with me? Is there something that wrong with me? And then I realized, no, I'm not that bad. I'm okay. I'm not perfect. Definitely not perfect. But I'm okay. I do what I think is right most of the time. And if I ever do anything that I think is wrong, it's usually eating the wrong thing. That's how serious, sometimes I do things that are wrong to myself, but not to other people. And my point is valid, I think, even though I'm babbling. I forgot to have breakfast today. Yep. Sandra says, yes, gray rocks for being good for you, Rihanna. Rihanna says she has hers on hide alerts. That's a start. Okay. Yeah. Proof in text. Okay. That's also a valid point, Rihanna. Yeah. Keeping, screenshots and whatever you can do with text, also a valid point, especially if there becomes an ongoing issue. Nicole Angelina says, explaining is draining. Just say no. Yes. Okay. Yes. Angela Falsetta, number 1. She says, I never knew where my boundaries were in my life. I'm guilty of having poor boundaries with others because of that, learning to be more appropriate with others as well and setting my own. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. J-Bat says, my phone died and you don't have to make excuses for your boundaries. Ding, ding, baby. Abby says, I cannot talk today. Screenshots and evidence can be so useful. And let me say this, that's absolutely the truth. I have one client, she was actually one of my first clients, and I still talk to her now and then. And she was able to get a whole printout from her phone company, which I believe was Verizon, of all of the messages with this person. And then she was able to take that to court and use it to get a full-on order of protection against this person who was very dangerous. And I was really proud of her for doing that, because even, and he actually worked with her at the same place, and he actually was fired because of this order of protection. And that was really scary for her, for what I think you will understand are obvious reasons. And his mother was enabling him at the same place. And I think, if I remember correctly, she also got fired because she was superior to my client. She was above my client, managing my client. My client was dating her son. And then so one day they were walking down the hall, and the client's boyfriend's mother pulled her into a room, and there he was when she had tried to go no contact. And she enabled him to stalk her basically at work. Messed up stuff. All right. Hello, Letty. Letty says, I am starting to set firmer boundaries. How do you deal with people who are calling you too insensitive or who brush you off? My family members act this way. Too sensitive or brush you off. Yeah, that is the thing. Okay, so if you're in a situation like that, then what you do is, when you set the boundary and they say, how dare you, or you're so sensitive or whatever, you say, yeah, maybe I'm a little oversensitive, but since it bothers me so much, is there a problem with you doing this for me or not doing this for me? You know what I'm saying? Call them out nicely. You know what I'm saying? Agree. Sure, maybe I'm a little this or whatever, but is there really a problem with not kicking me in the face every day or whatever the boundary is? Do you know what I'm saying? And if you say it like that in such a way that, even a narcissist is going to have to be like, Now, of course, some of them are just going to shut you down and act like you're stupid and you don't deserve anything. But if you come from a toxic family, then you need to think about how much you allow them to affect you directly. And if you aren't able to step back or walk away, then you at least need to stay firm and be okay with being uncomfortable. Because unless they're going to physically assault you, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to make you uncomfortable for a minute until you until they realize you're not going to back down. Now, I've seen narcissistic rage happen as a result of setting a boundary. I've seen narcissistic injury happen, and many times that worked on me in the past. Today it doesn't, and thank goodness. You know, maybe it would help you to label those behaviors. So when, for example, let's say that you say no and they're like screaming and yelling and obviously raging. Well, that's narcissistic rage. But what if you say no and they cry? Or what if you say no and you don't love me? Or they say no and they start getting all picky and picking on all the other things you've ever done wrong in your whole life, whatever. Well, that might be narcissistic injury. I mean, sometimes the two overlap, you know. So just unless there's going to be a physical issue where they're going to physically assault you or they're going to do something horrible to you, learn to be uncomfortable in that moment. And if you really are worried about your physical safety, you have a whole other issue here, and you need to really just push through and get out. You don't need to stay away. But if it's just a matter of, yeah, okay. Yep, I'm going to have to get ready to wrap up. I've got to... Oh, wait, let me see this from Nicole. She says, a strange thing about America, women are programmed to be submissive so they're not seen as mean or nasty, but that makes our boundaries weak and leaves us open to be preyed upon. Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's the truth. And I think in some ways men are in a similar boat, some men, because you've also got the flip side on women. You've got women who are so overly aggressive and so pushy, like certain narcissistic mothers, for example, who run their husbands, who run their, everybody's life around them. And so then you've got, otherwise decent guys becoming codependent with toxic women. So it's not just women, but I agree with you that in our society, women are supposed to be strong and independent and also not too bitchy. And if you are too strong or too independent, then they'll call you a bitch just for being who you are. And it's just silliness. I'm probably going to get demonetized for saying that. But anyway, there it is, y'all. There it is. Okay. Yeah. Love and peace forever says, yep. Ain't that the truth? Yep. Yep. Yeah. And Angela Falsetta says, being called a liar if we do not spill our guts and give too much information, or we are hiding something, according to the narcissist. Yeah. So we tell too much. The firing squad is in front of us, one or more with the minions. Yeah. Minions, AKA flying monkeys, right? Okay, yeah. Good golly, Jillian says, I can identify. Okay, I want to keep talking to you guys. You know how much I love to talk to you all. But with that being said, yes, by the way, UNA, when that thing happened where she went through my room and dumped everything out, did I feel guilty even though I didn't do anything? A little bit, and also very shocked. But yeah, I felt guilty because I thought, why would she think I was taking drugs? I never took drugs when I was a kid, never ever. You know what I mean? I didn't even drink. Like, I used to joke and say I was a parent's wet dream. That's a messed up thing to say, but I was really good. Like, I didn't go hardly, one or two times in high school, I defied a couple little bit, but even when I did the bad thing, I still didn't get drunk or do drugs, even though I pretended I was drinking, but I didn't like alcohol. So anyway, yeah. Yeah, and Nicole Angelina says, yeah, our country's not even the top 40. Yeah. Oh, don't even. Yeah. You should see. I did a video about this kind of, and I got just shredded. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, Vonna, my name is Mud and always will be. Same. Yep. Power and Walking Away says E-Rock. Okay, I'm going to stop. Listen, if you would, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to keep scrolling down, but I think during our next live session, I'm going to talk about the guilt stuff, not feeling guilty. And if you like that idea right now, in case I miss it later, say yes. If you don't like that idea, say no and offer me an alternative option. Otherwise, I'll just do that one next time we talk. All right. Okay, everybody, big hugs and love to each and every one of you. No coffee. Yeah, I gotta get that coffee. That's probably why I'm all looped up. Oh, E-Rock's doing the sleep challenge. Thank you. Okay, I'm really leaving this time. I'm so sorry. I wish I could sit here all day. Talk to you soon. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me, genuinely. I'll see you guys soon. See, here I am again. Click, click, click. Now I'm really leaving.